All right, so tell me, what do you think Pop's story is?
Well, he was born in Baltimore City in April of 1930.
Well, he fell out of the sky from like a golden egg. And bam, we had Pop.
He was born April 21st, 1930.
So Pop was born on April 21st, 1930, and he lived at, I think, 202 Glover Street.
He was born in Baltimore City, right?
What? He lived next door to who?
My mom.
There.
Yeah, and Uncle Rick, his lifelong friend.
Yeah, good.
His school, I think, was right across the street from where he grew up. I don't think he went to it very often. Also next to him was where my mom grew up.
Pop grew up in Baltimore, and my mom was kind of the girl next door, which is adorable.
Grew up next door to my mom. I know him and Uncle Rick got into a lot of things when they were kids.
Like, then he got beat up by my mom, right? That's what he always tells me.
He smashed turtles and killed rats in the back alley of Baltimore City.
Turtle murderers.
I'm guessing Pop got into a lot of trouble, and if he didn't join the Marines, and he was definitely going to jail.
Yeah, definitely.
And then in the military. Yep, then he was in the military, lied about his age.
So then Pop joined the military and married my mom.
No, wait, he joined the Marines, he came back home, and Mum wanted nothing to do with him, but I guess he bugged her enough and she changed her mind.
Games with his knives. And then...
So they got married, and then they relocated because Pop was still serving, and they moved down south.
And then I think he went into the service, he went into the Marines, and probably came back with a lot more discipline.
Shotguns.
And
so then he came back and
they popped out 5 kids.
Put fires out.
With hoses.
With hoses, with garden hoses.
all right, and then he met Mom, and then he had how many kids?
5.
He had all his children. He worked 3 jobs.
And they moved to Sparrows Point.
I've known Pop for over 44 years, and he's kind of like a Benjamin Franklin, where they tell you about self-reliance. It's got to do with being a doctor. Pop was, we used to call him Dr. Cease, unlicensed doctor. I found this out over the years when I first found out when he said Miss Betty's daughter came over one day and he was helping people out, and they didn't have money to go to the doctor, so she rips open her blouse and her boobs are hanging out and she's got something between the middle, and she goes, "What is this, Mr. Cease?" And he goes, "I don't know, I don't want to see your breast." But he started getting involved in doing doctor work, and so as the years went on, he used to do it for the kids. He was always having down a pool table, doing whatever, fix them, giving them enema, whatever it was. But I came down there, and I had a wart on the back of my knee, and I said, "Pop, what is this?" And he goes, "Oh, I know what that is, and I can take it off for you." I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, let me get a bolt." He goes out and gets about a half-inch bolt, about this size, puts it on the stove until it's red, and sticks it on the wart on the back of my leg, and he says, and the anesthetic's going to be a hunk of ice. He put the ice on the wart and burnt it off. I mean, I have to say it did hurt a little bit after that.
So a good memory that sticks out about Pop is that we shared together. It probably brought us closer in certain ways was when I got arrested for not drinking at a party, even though I was arrested for drinking at a party, and I got thrown in jail. And I had one phone call, and my phone call was to my mom and dad, of course, and Mom picks up the phone, and I say, "Mom, it's Cher, and I need to talk to Dad." "It's 4 in the morning, where are you? My God, where are you?" And I was like, "Just put Dad on the phone." But why? Just put Dad on the phone. Did not, for the first time, want to talk about anything with my mom. So she wakes up, my dad, she wakes up and she says, it's Sharon. He's like, Sharon, what's wrong? It's like, I was arrested, Dad. I was arrested. I'm in jail right now. You're what? And I'll be right there. So that was a good feeling that somehow I knew that I could count on my dad for being there when I needed him at moments like that, and that's the truth. So before you know it, it was early in the morning. I had egg sandwiches thrown in at me through my private padded jail cell, and we were all separated because they were afraid that the hookers would pick us up. They were. And so that whole day came. I had to see a commissioner and finally go into the court. And probably a very good moment was I was waiting in court and I saw Dad walk in, and we looked at each other, and he started to cry and I started to cry because he couldn't be there for me when I needed him. There's no way that he could get me out of jail, and I had to spend the whole night and half the next day there. And I'll never forget because he ran up and he hopped over the courtroom, little part that has the stairs there, and hugged me, and he got yelled at by the judge, and the judge was like, sir, you have to sit down. You can't come over this side. And he just kept hugging me, kind of brushed off the judge, and then walked around and held my hand while I went up to go see the judge, and she then let me go. And it was a quiet ride home. But after that, Dad said, you know that boyfriend you like? You better say goodbye, because you're never gonna see him again.
And here's Drew's top 10 things Pop ever taught him.
And number 10 thing Pop has taught me: always smell an oyster before you eat it. No matter what Pop says. Remember that.
My favorite story about Pop happened on Sam's boat. Sam was very kind to take a bunch of the guys out on the boat one Saturday while all the ladies were having was it the wedding? Yeah. We stopped, in the harbor, and we're hanging out. But the back story of this was Kurt was talking about crazy cousin Billy, I think, who always would just like strip off his clothes and jump naked into the water whenever they were boating and stuff like that. So I think that stuck in Pop's head, that story. And so we're coming back, and a couple people had brought swim trunks, and so a couple people were getting ready to swim for a little while, and I went down into the bathroom in the boat to change, and as I come back out, I just see Pop from behind, and he's decided that he wants to go for a swim, but he didn't bring his swim trunks. So he's just wearing his tighty whities, and I got the back view, and I can see that everyone's just like laughing hysterically, and it takes me a little while to figure out why. And Pop's an older man, and certain things happen to your body as a man when you get older, and one of Pop's balls is hanging out of the bottom of his tidy whities. And everyone else has realized this and is laughing hysterically, and Pop's laughing hysterically. And I came out of the bathroom, and part of me just thought maybe I should just go back in and just hang out there for a while. But Pop wasn't deterred by this. He's like, well, I might as well just go full bore. And so he just took off the tidy whities and just jumped in the water, and everybody jumped in. I think Joe might have actually had swim trunks, but he decided to just go buck naked too in the water, so he jumped in. So a couple naked guys, the rest of us decided to wear swim trunks, just in the water, laughing. It was good that we had kind of flotation devices because of how funny it was. I don't think I could have swam without the flotation devices. So everyone's just kind of like laughing about all this and can't believe it really can happen. But then we have to get Pop in the boat to get back. And having a hard time, necessarily just climbing up the ladder. So Kurt, as a good son, the blood son who's there, decides he wants to go over and give Pop a little push, but he hasn't really thought this through, that there's no clothing between Pop and Kurt. So Kurt's trying to give him a boost, but realize there's not anything to really grasp onto. So I think Kurt was kind of doing one of these guys, just kind of turning away and trying to push everything up on the boat.
Number 9 thing Pop has taught me: how to play golf. Bam.
So I have, my first story is Fun Dad. And this is a story when Sherry and I, and Sherry probably doesn't even remember this because she was probably 5 years old. I was probably 10. And Dad took us fishing because I guess he figured he'd taken, you know, the guys always go fishing, so we never get to go fishing. So he takes Sherry and I out in the Sea-King to go fishing. And he is teaching us everything, how from, you know, casting the line to putting the worm on the hook, everything. So he's got all that to deal with a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. So we're in the boat, you know, the lines are getting tangled. It's just, I mean, it's, at one point he was laughing because it was just, I remember him laughing because it was so ridiculous. So we finally get everything, the lines are in the water, we got the hooks baited with the worms, lines are in the water, and we're finally, everybody's calm, we're waiting. And we get a fish. I get a fish on the hook. Reel it in. So reel it in, reel it in, reel it in. So I have it and I'm very happy, and he says, well, now you have to take it off the hook. And I said, I don't want to take it off the hook. And he said, well, you got to get it off the hook. Yeah, let me show you how to hold it. So, because fish wiggle. So he shows me how to grab it by the gills and hold it, and he'll get the hook out. So we have it, I have it by the gills, and I'm holding it, and he gets the hook out. And as soon as he gets the hook out, the fish pops out of my hand into the air and lands right in his coffee cup. I'm directly into his coffee cup, splash, coffee goes everywhere. And we all just sit, and I looked at him because I thought, I'm gonna get it now because that's his coffee, right? I just ruined his coffee, but we laughed. We laughed because the fish fell in the coffee, and what's not funny about that? So, a lesser man would have turned around and gone home, but not Pop. He stuck it out for probably like 15 more minutes, and then we all turned around and we went home. But I always remember that day because it was just us fishing, and it was fun. It was fun. It was a fun day.
And then the story, of course, when we went to Florida, and Uncle Frank was involved in that again. And Dad and I were out there fishing on a pier, and Uncle Frank had burned his feet so bad the day before and sunburned that he couldn't come out and stand in the sun. So he was standing under a tree while Dad and I were out there fishing. And a boat pulled up and anchored, and the guy got out to go into a little place where they sold hamburgers and food, and he left his wife, an infant, and 2 kids on the boat. Well, the anchor wasn't holding, and it kept drifting in towards the rocks. So Dad says, well, we got to go do something. So we jump in the water, it's chest deep, and we go out there, and we're holding the boat, trying to walk it out away from the rocks, and the lady's trying to start the motor, and the motor won't start. So I'm standing in the water, and all of a sudden I feel something brush up against my legs, and I'm standing on, next thing I know, I'm standing on the deck of this boat. Dad looks at me and goes, what the hell are you doing up there? I said, something brushed up against my leg. Oh, don't be him. And the next thing I know, he's standing on the deck of the boat where something brushed up against his legs. So we're both standing on the deck of this boat, it's drifting into the rocks again. So I grab a rope and jump back in the water, and I'm trying to hold the boat. And Dad finally got the motor started, and we pulled the boat out and got it all out away from there and anchored. And then finally the guy come out with the food and said, oh, thanks, and off they went.
That was it.
So that was one of our great episodes.
Number 8 thing Pop has taught me: scuba diving and 12-inch subs, they just don't mix.
Okay, yeah, so I was about 10 years old, and me, Tyler, and Ian were gonna play a joke on Pop. We had one of the shock pens, and so when you press it down, it shocks your thumb. And so we give him the pen, we're like, here, Pop, try this pen, it's not working. So he tries the pen, and he's like, yeah, it seems fine to me. And we tell him, like, Pop, you didn't feel anything? He goes, no, I don't have any feeling in my right thumb.
Okay, for a reason I don't understand. I always, and I still don't believe it to this day, why I insist on believing everything my dad tells me. Now, so this story is, I don't exactly know how old I was. I know I was little, and it was over in the Sparrows Point parking lot. Dad was teaching Mom how to park, and it was a cold day. And he had brought some oranges with him, and I had kind of, been cold, and I was hungry, and I said, Dad, I'm hungry, and he goes, well, here, why not eat this orange? When you finish the orange, eat the peel. The peel is what will keep you warm. So, I went and ate the peel, and I think just in my head, he psyched me out, I guess, I was warm, and happy. So that's about my short story.
Number 7 thing Pop has taught me. Old men are fast as shit. Pop used to chase me every time I would leave the shore into Lynn's van. Remember that.
First of all, I want to say that Pop, I'm sorry for sawing the pool table, and I'm also sorry for busting your lawnmower back when I tried to cut the lawn back on Kirkland Street. So I wanted to get that out of the way and get a record of that. But I have a story of when one day I was hard at work. I happened to be working at DAP, which was relatively close to the shore. And I'm in my office, and I get a phone call, and it's Pop on the other end of the phone. And I say, hey, Pop, what's going on? He says, hey, Sandy, we need a rescue. I said, what do you mean a rescue? Well, he proceeded to tell me that he and Kurt went out fishing, and they were out by Miller's Island, clinging to life by a piling way out by Miller's Island, and they needed somebody to tow them in because the motor stopped working. And between he and Kurt, they must have pulled the cord 1,000 times, and nobody was getting it started. So I hopped into rescue mode and came down the shore, hopped on the jet ski, and I think within a total of 10 minutes from the time I got the phone call, was out at Miller's Island and towed them back. But of course I didn't tow them right back. I had to take a tour through the eagle nest to show them where the eagles were. So we took the long way back as I was towing the two of them in the rowboat behind the jet ski.
Oh, and wrestling. Then there's always the wrestling. Dad used to come to my meets. And let's see, if he remembers this look. You're loafing! Whenever I would get taken down or something, he would orient himself so he could see me.
Make eye contact.
Make eye contact with me in a perfect position and tell me I was loafing. I can always remember sitting on that bottom bench and his head cocked looking at me. You're loafing. That inspired me. I usually got out of it, but it was kind of funny when I'd look up there and see him, and his face was oriented towards my face. And how would that happen?
Number 6 thing Pop has taught me. Fishing and butt itch are a real thing. Be sure to bring your rod, your bloodworms, and a comfy cushion.
In order to tell my favorite Pop story, I'm going to have to set the scene a little bit. So, I always when I was little, I always saw Pop as kind of this cool man of mystery. To me, he was my grandfather that I loved, who took me fishing all the time and took me out to play baseball. But then I was always a little confused by all the stories I heard about Pop from other people that always made me a little worried. And what I mean by that is, so I was always a little concerned that, for example, when Pop and I went out to play baseball, that if I scraped my knee, that he might literally slap a hot bolt to it. So that's the way I saw Pop. So one time when I was about 5, he and Mum came down to visit, and I remember he was talking for some reason about his tattoos, and he was saying that he wished he didn't have them. So being a naive 5-year-old, I promised Pop that I would wash them off for him. Which obviously meant not only was I naive, but I knew absolutely nothing about tattoos. Thanks, Mom and Dad. So I, run upstairs and I get soap and water and lotion. I'm not sure what I thought the lotion was going to do, but I come down with this, soap and water and lotion, and I start scrubbing at Pop's arm. And I'm pretty sure we sat down there for like literally an hour while I scrubbed at his tattoos. And I remember when I finally decided to give up, Pop was just like, "Thanks for trying, Kate." And so that's kind of the way that I really see Pop now. He was this badass with his military tattoos who was still willing to sit around for an hour while a 5-year-old pointlessly scrubbed at his arm. That's my Pop.
Okay, so I was gonna tell the story about the one time we were at the boat, and I remember this because I was nervous. We were winterizing our boat, and it was like the first year I was helping my dad do it. And so in our boat, you have to lift up the compartment to go down to where the engines are, and there's like these 2 big engines, and there's all these wires, and it's loud and it's intimidating. So I was nervous, and I didn't want to screw up Dad's boat because that's like the worst thing you can do. And so what happened was Pop was down there helping me. And so Dad went up to start the boat, and I was nervous, and so I said to Pop, I said, what is he going to do? Is it going to be loud, or what do we have to do? He goes, no, you'll be fine. Just cover your ears. And I got real nervous, and he made me even more nervous. And I go, "Wait, Pop, are you serious?" And he goes, no, I'm kidding. But hold your breath. He made me he didn't miss a beat, but it was funny. And then Dad started the engines, and it was fine. But that's my...
Number 5 thing Pop has taught me: how to paint while exiled. The end.
I do want to say that he and my mom did such a wonderful job raising his son.
This one? Oh, I'm the only one.
That guy. Because not only did they raise a wonderful son, but they raised a man to be a wonderful husband for me. And Pop and Kurt have such similar characteristics: honesty and kindness, and their work ethic, and generosity and loving. And I thank you for that. And there is one thing though. I just wonder, in all of that time that you had, could you not have taught him how to part with his money a little bit more from his wallet? I mean, come on.
So when I think of Dad, I think back over the years, I have to say he was Mr. Fix-It. Yeah, I don't know how I got this role, and I don't know if he ever really wanted it, but it's what happened. He was always the person that people came to say, "Hey, how do I fix this?" or "How do I take care of this?" or whatever. "I need your advice on this." So it's always been that way. And I can remember as a kid, Mom always saying, "Oh, don't worry, Father, fix it." Whenever anything broke, it was always, "Dad'll fix it." So, that's one of the things. And some of the first things I remember Dad fixing for me is my head. I busted my head skipping up the street backwards into the gate. And I guess I must have passed out, because the next thing I remember, I was sitting on the kitchen table and Dad was patching up my head. So I have to assume that Mom called him and he came home from work, and Dr. Cease was fixing things up. So, so that was it. And I think I still have the scar in the back of my head somewhere, because my hair always parts back there somewhere. And
Number 4 thing Pop has taught me: whitening your teeth is simple. Bleach, baking soda, toothbrush. Brush, rinse, done.
So I would always start the story like this. I would say, okay, I'm going to tell you a story about my pop. And the first thing you need to know about my pop is that he's a badass. Capital B, capital A, badass. And I would tell them stories about how, growing up, if the kids reached across the table to get something to eat, he would stab them in the hand with a fork. Or how one time he used matches to try and teach my dad a lesson about fire. And let's see, and how terrified I was. One time I broke his computer chair, and I went and told Dad that I broke his computer chair, and he said, well, you have to tell him, I'm not telling him. And so I remember having to go into Pop and tell him I broke it, and I was just terrified he was gonna like stab me with a fork or something, because I'd heard all those stories. So.
Well, I don't really remember this, but I've heard it many times through my mom about when I was little and I was sick, and she told me that Pop came in every single day, talked to me and read me Dr. Seuss books and was always there holding my hand. And growing up with Pop, I know I've always had like a certain connection with him, even though we don't have to say it all the time. We just have, you know, that love together that you don't need to say. It's just there.
Beautiful.
Well, I like knowing that I'm the first and most favorite daughter-in-law. However, I know for a fact that if I had any other competition, I would still be the first and favorite daughter-in-law.
Obviously.
And as it is now, you're the only. So.
We didn't have to share that.
Oh, sorry.
We didn't have to share that. But I remember when I really felt part of the family was when my mom was sick. And I asked if I could come help take care of her. And at first Pop said no, because I think he didn't want to impose. But I said, this is my summer and I'm off. And this is when I can do this. Please let me do this. And he did. And it was probably the best 3 weeks that I ever had with my mom. I could never get that time back. And then I felt like a daughter, not just a daughter-in-law.
So, just grew up hearing these stories about Pop and how tough he was and what a tough guy he was. But then I don't think I really have fully formed memories of Pop until Mom got sick. And I think my image of him changed during that time because we saw how much he loved her and how much he cared for her. And just how he took such good care of her. So this Pop that we knew as this really like hard ass became a hard ass in a different way, like in like going to be the best caregiver that he could possibly be for Mum. And I remember actually thinking, you know, when Mum was close to dying, like, I don't know what our family, man. You can edit this part out. No, I don't know what our family's gonna be like without my mom. And you know, we had so much fun around the table and sort of gathered together, and I didn't know if that would exist afterwards. But I think Pop gave us this gift in caring for Mum and letting us know how much he loved her. Because in seeing how much he loved her, we got to love him in a way that was beautiful and brand new. And in loving him in this new way, our family became this beautiful family. Where we became this beautiful family that gets together and just enjoys one another, and we know this sort of experience of one another that we had never had before. And we got to have that because Pop loved Mum and then allowed us to love him. And he has shown us how much he loves us. And I just think about how different that is from a man who would stab you in the hand with a fork to now a Pop.
So, you know, it was a summer afternoon, and I was just sitting on the deck after a nice swim in the toxic water. And in the lawn chair, I'm talking to Pop. And then the leg snapped and I fell off the deck. You know, towel on my head and everything. And I just remember like emerging out of the water and then like Pop's, you know, signature laugh. just staring at me laughing. And I always remember that's a good memory with Pop because he's it shows he has a good sense of humor behind, you know, this rough exterior.
Number 3 thing Pop has taught me, grass cutting. Riding lawnmowers are the way to go. Just be sure you have a functioning steering wheel.
This is an awesome story. I think this is the first year that Drew and I were married, officially married. I think it was 2011 at the shore. And speaking of being a good dad, I've never seen an 80-year-old man go so crazy in my life because his baby daughter was being attacked by good old Dexter. So it was a nice sunny day and everybody's enjoying themselves with nice food and having a good old time, and I hear some commotion out on the deck. Well, I see Pop. Well, Lynn's leg is bleeding from the dog biting her, and Pop has the dog in a chokehold, bare-fisting the dog in the head. And I've never seen a man that age just go that crazy for his daughter, and it was good to see in a way, because Dexter, 1, had to be put in his place, and 2, he didn't want anybody to mess with his little girl. So.
One of my favorite memories of Pop. We were down at Topsail Island, North Carolina on vacation. It was the Counselor family, and Pop was with Brandy and Donna, staying at her house nearby. So one day they came up to the beach with us, and we were hanging out up on the deck, waiting for dinner to be made. And I'm not sure if I've ever seen Pop really drink, but that night he had 2 beers. Sitting on that deck, and we were just having a great time, just laughing. It was me, him, Joe, and Drew. And then Pop out of nowhere says, "You know, I knew Steve McQueen." It's like, "You knew Steve McQueen? What? That's like the most random thing. Never think about Steve McQueen." And so he tells us the story about how Steve McQueen was in his Marine Corps unit and how he hated him because he was always getting in trouble and making the unit do extra work, KP, staying on weekends, and all sorts of stuff. He just had a hate for Steve McQueen. I've never seen him hate like that. It was hilarious. So a little bit later, we're finding ourselves at the dinner table, and we were near Wilmington, North Carolina, where a lot of movies are made. They call it Hollywood East or something. And I think it was Joe who said, "Well, I wonder if they got a statue to Steve McQueen down there in Wilmington for one of the movies he made." And I yell, "Yeah, it probably reads 'Fuck Steve McQueen' on it." I'd never seen Pop laugh so hard in my life. I swear, I think we were having Mexican that night, but he must have had salsa coming out of his nose. It was hilarious.
Well, your dad and Pop, Howard and I took a motorcycle ride to Western Maryland. And when we got up there, my aunt was away, and she said, "You guys should use my vehicle if you want to go to town instead of using a motorcycle." So which we did, and we drove up there, and it was Shirley was married to a preacher, right?
Yeah, preacher.
A preacher. So we pulled up to a local tavern, and it was pretty well crowded up there, and it's like, "Well, where do we park?" And Joe says, "Your dad says, well, park here, Father Preacher, you know." So we pulled up, we bellied up to the bar, and we started ordering our drinks, and Joe looks over to Pop and says, "Father, what are you going to have?" And the bartender says, "Father, yeah, Preacher, what are you going to have?" So he orders this drink. So anyway, my aunt comes home, and she calls me a week later and says, "What all did you do up there?" And we're like, "What are you talking about?" She says, in our local gazette says, "Preacher visits local bars." We're like, "Whoop." So.
shit just got real. Number 2, family comes first. You know who taught us that.
So, my favorite thing about Pop is that he's up for anything. He's 85 years old, and I could call him up and ask him to go and do something, and he would do it in a heartbeat, I think. And it's not something that's new. I mean, you know, how many people get to tell, you know, their friends that their grandfather is running, you know, a 5K with them. Their 75-year-old grandfather's running a 5K with them this weekend, and he's been a pilot, and he's the first person to run into danger or anything else. So one thing that I've always appreciated is that Pop just never says no to a party or to fun, and you know, I like to have my parties, so it's always great that I know that I can count on him, and I can count on his iconic laugh to be at my parties. Hold on, I'll give you my Pop.
The second time I'd met Pop, it was at Jen's wedding, and he came in after they'd been at pictures, and I knew who he was, and I walked up and I said, "Hey, Pop," and he looked at me and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Andrew, I'm Katie's boyfriend." He said, "Oh, hey man, nice suit." And that was the last thing I remember at Jen's wedding. My second story is Katie and I were still dating, not married yet, had gone up to Adrian and Chris's house for a Halloween party. And Katie was wearing a costume of a police officer, although she would have been a horrible police officer because she had about 6-inch heels and maybe a 2-inch skirt. So I don't know who she was catching. But we walked in, greeted everyone, and said hey to Pop, and he looked at us and he said, "Okay."
Hey Pop.
Nice.
I love you. You're a good man, and you gave me a good daughter.
Very good.
She's crying, so I'm not going to say anymore. Way to go, Pop.
Okay, things Pop. I have some things Pop taught me.
Okay.
Pop taught me how to oil up real good at the beach. How to get that brown glowing tan. Oh, and this goes hand in hand. Even if you did get burnt, it's okay. Hop in the hot tub, burns it off. Hot tub burns it off. And I still tell people that to this day. It's all right, the hot tub will burn it off. Oh, Pop taught me that it's okay to eat moldy bread. All you do is pick the mold off. It's still edible. The condiments are fine to eat past their expired date. They're okay.
Oh, was it your car that he fixed with the plunger to the side, pull out the dent? Whose car was it?
Not mine.
Somebody's car. Remember we had a dent, everybody was talking about, oh, what are we gonna do? This is so bad, we can't. No,
Take the plunger.
Pop walked out there with the plunger from the bathroom and pulled the dent right out the side of the car.
It wasn't mine, we'll have to locate
I don't
that
know,
person.
right. I don't know whose car that
It
was.
could have been mine. They should.
Number one thing Pop has taught me, how to be a good dad. Pop, I need your help on this one, brother. Love you, man. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Pop.
Happy birthday, Pop.
May you live another, may you live to be 100 years old.
Happy birthday, Pop! 85 years, yay!
Happy birthday, Pop. We love you.
Happy birthday, Dad! We love you!
Dad, I wish you a happy 85th birthday.
Happy birthday, Pop.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Pop!
I just want to say happy birthday to one of the classiest men I know. I love you.
We love you so much.
Dad, you know I love you more than words can say, and I want to see you around for a long time to come. Mwah.
I love it.
Well, yeah, here you go, Pop. That's the heads.
Number 3 thing Pop has taught me. Grass cutting. Riding lawnmowers. Whatever.
We used to play games like who could find the most expired condom in Pop's kitchen.
Most expired condom?
Condom.
I'm Liam from One Direction.
And I'm gonna start this thing and then you can go number 10. Go ahead.
When?
Whenever the fuck you
It's
want
rolling,
to. It's been rolling for the past 15 minutes.
Hey Drew, I just scored and I put some white noise in there.
Happy birthday, and I love you very much.
God, you're fucking natural. Seriously.
I'm Zane. I just left One Direction.
James, you gotta keep that fart in I did at the end of the one.
Of course.
He's got to
Take 3.
Okay, we'll stop having quiet on the set. No. Good Lord. Okay, hold on.
Did you hear that fart?
Why?
I just farted.
Chris, hold on. Chris.
Yeah.
Shut up.
But remember, if you don't make it, the key word is brown dick. We have a
fat lady or something like that.
You can have her. She's too fat for me.
Chris. Hold on 1 second. Hey, Chris.
Yes, dear.
Can you just be quiet, please?
I was.
Cool.
Was it on?
Yes, it's been on.
see you in hell.
She's called.
Think that'll hit it?
I love the brown dick.